John Kobylt Show, KFI AM 640, live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Welcome. We're on every day from 1 until 4. And if you missed stuff today, you know what to do. After 4 o'clock, go to the iHeart app for the podcast version, John Kobylt Show on demand. It's the same as the radio show. We're going to get right to it here. Tanya Tsikanovsky. Am I saying that right?
You said it great.
Yeah, well, I'm Polish, so I'm.
There we go.
I think you're Polish too, based on this name.
I'm Russian or Ukrainian.
Ukrainian, close enough. We're cousins. She's an out and proud lesbian who voted for Donald Trump and told her friends about it, and now she's been locked out of most of her friend groups, and she's going public with what it's been like for her. We just played the little 2-minute story that Fox 11 did on you right before the news. When did you decide you were going to tell people you're voting for Trump? Because your recent voting history was Hillary in 2016, Biden in 2020. And is this something that you and your friends always talked about? And there was a day that you had to say, "Hey, I'm switching sides"?
No, it was more of me watching everything happen on campuses over the last year. You know, in my friend groups, based on my voting history, based on what I look like, based on my gender and sexuality, people assume that I am always going to be blue. So the conversation about who I'm going to vote for wasn't actually a question. The assumption was always there. But after watching what was going on campus and how the Biden administration did nothing to prevent Jewish students from attending their classes, I realized that I am doing a disservice to my Jewish identity if I continue to vote blue. And so it's been festering all year. I have been very, very vocal about being a Zionist, which has already alienated me from queer spaces because at this point, especially in LA, Queers for Palestine seems to have taken over every part of queer life. So I've already felt like I didn't have a space. And with the election coming up, I knew that I needed to start using my voice for my people, my Jewish people, because as much as I am a woman and I am a lesbian, I am a Jew first. I don't think I'll have the luxury to live a free gay life if all of a sudden Jews are no longer allowed to be in this country. And I fear that was the direction that we were headed, because 10 years before the Holocaust, students were getting blocked from campuses in Germany. So to witness that here and to come from a family of, Soviet refugees who has lost so many of our family in the Holocaust. I was raised right. I owe it to my parents to stand up for my Jewish heritage and Jewish identity. And I love Israel. So I decided I needed to be honest about my vote, because I really genuinely believe that my vote will protect Jews and Israel. And so that's what I did.
No, I can identify with this. I mean, not only are ancestors from the same part of the world, my dad was at age 14 captured from his parents' home and taken to Auschwitz. They thought he was Jewish, and they had a committee decided ultimately by a 2-to-1 vote that he was not Jewish, and he wasn't. He was Catholic. But had they voted the other way, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't exist. So I've always been very sensitive to, and I know about Hamas. I know what's in the charter, and I have been telling people it's like there is no difference in the goals of Hamas and the other terrorist groups and the goals of Nazi Germany. It's
Correct.
Exactly the same. And why is it that so many in your community can't grasp that?
I think that Israel comes off as powerful. I think Israel comes off as white. People assume that Israelis are white people. They're not. We Jews are a tiny fraction of this world. There's 15 million of us. And I think that because we're such strong allies with America, Israel is such strong allies with America, they assume that we are just some bombastic bully. There's all of these smear campaigns that Jews run Hollywood. I'm not really sure how we do that if we're constantly being told we're terrible. But I just feel like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, that's such a superficial reaction that they have. I mean, They don't really at least debate this to a deeper level.
No, there hasn't been room for conversation. That was one of the main reasons I decided to be public, was to try to bridge the gap. I think a lot of people are coming from places of pain and fear and ignorance. And so much of that could be remedied if we just have the difficult conversations like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that it's unfortunate that so many of my community, my queer community, refuse to do that.
And going back to the beginning, so is this just came up in casual conversation with people?
No, essentially, I utilize my social media to be
Right.
very outspoken. I went public online that I was voting for Trump. And after that, people that I knew very well for years started to unfollow me, sent me messages saying that they no longer want me in their life.
But you explained the part
absolutely.
about the Palestinian demonstrations and the Jewish students being blocked.
And that's what's unfortunate. Somehow, you know, everyone is trying to say that Trump is going to take gay rights away, which is not true. But let's hypothetically say that were true. Let's say marriage equality was now on, you know, potentially could not happen. But I'm also still a Jew. So if I would be faced with making a vote, I have to choose at that point whether I'm going to vote to protect the lesbian in me or the Jew in me. Now, my priority is to protect the Jew in me. Why is that somehow less of an issue than someone else voting to protect themselves? I think it's so selfish that so many Democrats feel like their own struggle is the only one that matters and no one else's does. And if someone else does happen to vote for their own struggle, they don't want anything to do with you. I don't look at someone that voted for Kamala and think that they somehow don't care about me or they don't want what's best for me. No, they voted for themselves, and I respect that. Why don't I get that same in return? And so, you know, when Elon Musk retweeted my story and said that it's a cult, it is. It's absolutely become a cult, and it's horrifying and very sad.
Yeah, and the irony, and this has been pointed out many times, is that these are the people who preach diversity. And they're absolutely intolerant to diversity of thought, diversity of opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's really scary, because at the end of the day, politics, laws, everything is ever changing. And if you're constantly going to keep preaching the same thing, that Republicans are evil and everyone else is evil and we're right, who says that you're right? You know, it's so funny to me, but I live in Studio City, and across from my apartment, which costs a good amount of money, there's a homeless encampment. And there was a Trump sign in that homeless encampment. And so for me, if I think that the most, if the people that have the least in this country are now hoping that Trump's president, the Democrats have failed the communities that they say that they care about the most, myself included.
Have you been surprised? I'm sure you've noticed this phenomena for a long time, the groupthink phenomenon, how everybody has the exact same thoughts, says the same things on all the same issues. Did you ever were bothered by this before, question it before, discuss these kinds of issues with your friends?
You know, honestly, I feel like I have to take responsibility for being the people that would ostracize people like me now. Way back when, if you voted for Trump, I wanted nothing to do with you. I think I found posts that I posted back in 2016 saying, I'm packing my bags, I'm leaving this country. And I feel so mortified that that is how I behaved, because I missed out on learning so much. And thankfully, I've had so many years of experience in living in different places and seeing the world and getting to see the privilege of what I have here. And I think that so many people here are just ignorant to that privilege and just keep on preaching the same mantra over and over again. And it's divided our country in half. And it's so polarizing, you know. And I spoke to a colleague who's been a lifelong Republican, and he said, you know, most of us Republicans are moderate. We are not those crazy, evil Nazis that the Democrats want to paint us to be. We don't care about your sexuality, your gender, your race. We just want moderation and sensibility in this country. And that's what I want as well.
All right. Can you hang on for another segment?
Absolutely.
Okay. Tanya Tsikanovsky.
Yes.
And she is, by her own description, an out and proud lesbian who announced online that she was voting for Trump after going for Hillary and Joe Biden in the past. And the turning point issue was the way the Palestinian protest groups treated the Jewish students at the universities, and the universities largely allowed it to happen. And the kids were blocked from attending class. You know all that story. We're going to talk more with Tanya. Coming up, John Kobylt Show, Deborah Mark live in the KFI 24-hour newsroom.